Parents' meetings we went to decry the foul play, while they sat back laughing and saying what a child's play. The result of all such meetings proved futile as it couldn't make for us a way. So we marched out on the streets just so they could consider us say. But we made a stone wall as they came cracking down on us so as to instill us with dismay. We've lost thousands, but maybe this is the price we must pay. For we wanted out, but they held us back, saying we must stay. Despite the loss, we remained true to our stand, saying we must go our way. We're not there yet, but this intention takes center stage every day as we pray. We all are hurting in this, and it's probably time we go our separate ways. We definitely will easily win the match if the field is leveled and we engage in fair play. We remain resilient, hoping we would get there someday. So we're preparing the stage, and oh, that day will be your reckoning day. But for now, let's not forget our history. It's independent.
My fellow countrymen and women, dear soldiers of our war of independence, I want to take this evening to thank our people at the home front for their great sense of sacrifice and for continuously believing in the dream and ideal for a homeland free of tyranny. I also want to thank the sacrifices of our prisoners of war, their enduring spirit that has inspired millions across the globe. The deprivation of your liberty affects each and every one of us because you have families out there who think and pray for you on a daily basis. And if we are highly committed to the liberation of our country, it is also inspired not only by your suffering, but by your great sense of commitment. We want to thank you very much. I will also thank our diasporan community, those in exile who've been bundled out of their country because of the tyranny of an alien regime in our homeland. Without you, there will be no homeland. It is because of your continuous injection of the funds and exposing the barbarism of the regime that the world has finally come to listen to us. And I understand the difficulties. I understand sometimes the deliberate injection of turmoil, but I know you understand what the stakes are, that your commitment and dedication out here has also inspired our people to know they are not alone. And I ask you to continuously, unfailing, to commit to the resistance, to the defense of the homeland, and to make sure we can alleviate and minimize the suffering of our children, mothers, and our entire community. I have come today to talk about two solemn issues. After World War II, the Germans moved across different countries to seek protection from tyranny. Those who had been displaced by war and those who had even left because of the installation of the National Socialist regime in Germany. So many had fled Germany. There was under customary law practices that led to the protection of people from persecution. But in 1951, the international system came together and developed the foundation of the international protection regime that would make sure that those who cross international borders for fear of persecution because of their race, their nationality, their ethnicity, their political opinion, and even their gender should be provided protection from persecution. There are millions of people across the globe who have been an asset because of the premise of this international treaty, which is binding across the international system, especially with respect to countries that have signed it. And we talk about prominent individuals that have developed foreign countries. Madeleine Albright was a refugee from the Czech Republic who fled that country after World War II and sought refuge in the United States. She rose up to become the first female Secretary of State in the United States. Her contribution towards international peace and security and in advancing, the different theoretical framework for the way nations should conduct themselves within the international space has been invaluable, and it has contributed immensely in raising the status of the United States as a great power. We also know that when the Germans invaded a country like France in World War II, I mean, the Gulf fled to Gabon. There are millions of people across the globe whose security has relied on the protection regime offered by the 1951 Geneva Convention and its 1967 Bellagio Protocol. There is something about this convention. It's the principle of non-refoulement. The principle of non-refoulement simply forbids countries not to send asylum seekers or refugees to destinations where there is a likelihood that they will be subjected to torture. And so you can simply invoke that principle to ask international treaty bodies to pass interim measures to stop countries from deporting you. I've worked on a lot of cases in Canada involving Indian and Sri Lankan applicants who asked the convention, the Committee Against Torture, or in the Human Rights Committee, to ask Canada to stay deportation because there was a reasonable fear that if deported, they will be subjected to torture. And Cameroon is one of the countries that has been cited repeatedly through research and through its attitude, through deliberations at the Human Rights Committee, the ECOSOC conference in Geneva, including the Universal Periodic Review, which is an international system to monitor countries' adherence to their obligation under Human Rights Treaty. So Cameroon has been known for many years as a state that practices not only torture but systematic torture. And so to deport someone back through that country or into that country, even without war, would be a violation of the principle of non-refoulement and your international obligation under the 1951 Geneva Convention. We understand, and we make no doubt about this, that the United States has been one of the most gracious countries that has given our people protection. Thousands and thousands of our people who fled to the United States, some who have even fled to Europe, sought asylum and were denied, were able to sought and receive asylum and protection from the United States. And I think we are grateful for this sense of generosity, even though it's an international obligation. But in comparative terms, you cannot compare the United States with any other country in the world with respect to the protection of Amazonians. But we think the United States can do more. And I really want to extend this appeal to the government of the United States, different governors across different states, to grant our people protection. Amazonians, all through 150 years or more under oppression, have been people who've believed in their country. They've believed in their own space. Amazonians started moving out of the country just recently compared to other countries where their citizens have established, communities, or the Amazonians are newcomers within the international space seeking protection from persecution. Amazonians believe in their country and they would not. The United States and other countries must understand Amazonians would hardly leave their country. They have a strong attachment and nostalgia for their communities, for the life they've lived within their countries. That's why no matter how long an Amazonian lives out here, there is still that pull factor that attracts them even in life or death, to seek a space within their country. Without systematic persecution that has gone on for more than 59 years, without a war declared on us and wanton destruction of property, persecution of our people, torture as a systematic state practice, commission of genocide with the intent to eliminate partially our people. Amazonians will find refuge in the land of their birth. And so, while we acknowledge some of the steps taken by the United States to bring pressure to bear on Cameroon in terms of sanction regime on its conduct within our territory, we think the greatest effort and the most significant effort would be for the United States to offer continuous protection to our people. It will be a reward, a big reward, as we have seen, to a regime that practices torture as a statecraft to see citizens deported back, to face persecution. Understanding between Cameroon and United States is a one-sided affair. These understandings have been rejected by UN treaty bodies, especially when it comes to countries that are classified for the practice of torture. And so I appeal to the US and to offer our people protection and continuously provide them with the support both at the Senate and different institutions of the United States to foster their aspiration for a separate homeland. And that is the time our people will move back to become the entrepreneurs, to develop our homeland, to become a business partner to the United States. And we will forever remain grateful for that. I'm also asking the Amazonian Governing Council US mission and missions in the United Kingdom and across the globe to open a documentation center. Every Amazonian at home or in exile should register within those documentation center to be provided legal expert advice on how they can seek protection. While you may invoke war as a means of receiving protection, while you may invoke general state of insecurity and human rights violation, the Geneva Convention and its Bellagio Protocol is very clear about the individualism in terms of application. It has to be what has happened to you. And understanding of the context within which you are emerging is critical for your application. And most Amazonians fail because they submit unsubstantiated application. You have a right, to receive expert advice before you are interviewed. You have a right to receive expert advice before you can prepare your deposition. It is critical. Your first deposition is critical in the way that the asylum application is going to turn out. And so I'm asking all AGOVC missions across the globe to open documentation center and provide free expert advice to our people in their quest to receive protection. This is critical to monitor the process and to be able to provide lawyers and others with the kind of information that will be very, very crucial for adjudications when it reaches the court of law. And so I think this is something that we can do. Amazonians who are in transit, you will be able to register within probably the Amazonian Governing Council website, and we should be able to track your movement and provide you that kind of support that you need. We want to build a country where the life of each individual Amazonian wherever on planet Earth, even on Mars, is the responsibility of the government. If you are invariably affected by disaster, whether created or not, the state has a responsibility to ensure your safety and your safe repatriation to the homeland. We can look at what has happened thereafter. And so I will ask our people, I want to thank those who went out to demonstrate. And I really want to thank you for that kind of solidarity that you offered our people. And I think we've fallen short in our response to this, and it requires an institutional, it requires institutional changes to make sure we can easily respond to such crises in a timely interval, as to avoid the kind of humiliating deportation of our people back to the homeland of terror. So I really want to let Amazonians know that we will continuously work for you to ensure that your stay out here is protected. I also want to encourage our communities out here to create stronger communities. Amazonians are still living in a bubble, in isolated communities without the kind of institutions that are long term in nature. Other communities have created economic institutions, legal institutions, social institutions that are sustainable, that can provide support for those who are coming in new, job opportunities, access to institutions of education and training. And I want Amazonians to think long term and not to think short term, because it hasn't really worked for you as an individual. It hasn't worked for our communities back at home. We must think long term, build sustainable institutions in terms of education, in terms of the economy and financial institutions that can provide a kind of cushion to those who are invariably affected by economic circumstances within countries that they have sought protection. As I've said before, every Amazonian out here, whether you are you came in out here because of U.S. Lottery, whether education, you are a refugee. If you were living in a country that provided you an educational system that made you an asset to yourself and your homeland, I know you wouldn't have left. If you were living in your country with economic opportunities, you wouldn't probably be migrating to a country where you find yourself as a stranger. We are all in exile, pushed out from our country by the brutality of an alien system installed there more than 60 years ago. We've been up in arms in the past 4 years to make sure we reverse that trend and give our people hope in the land of their birth, strengthen their communities, and live fulfilling lives. We have developed a new trend where we are moving our mothers, our grandmothers, to live out here in isolation, developing mental illnesses because of isolation and estrangement. That is selfish on our path. We should provide our parents a better place in the land of their birth. Some of them have left the graves of their husbands, their wives, their children, and they are living in isolated communities out here, not really knowing their future holds. We should think about this seriously as a people, know that we can build a better place, a stronger community for ourselves back in the country of our birth. We have done well, Amazonians. Don't get this wrong. You've done well. You've provided through your hard work opportunities for others to come in out here. Created wealth that has been used to rebuild our communities. You've been able to provide to our parents who lack medical attention the opportunities to have medical treatment to extend their days on planet Earth. So we've done well, but this approach is unsustainable. It is only when we have our country build these facilities there, provide these opportunities there, that all of us will feel really, really protected. The next issue I really want to talk about is the death in action of General Ayeke. And I know many will be wondering why I'm talking about this, why I'm worried about this, but I will be able to explain myself. A few days ago, I was briefed by my defense advisors of an incident in Talim, in the great state of Mine. I was provided a briefing on that. I also briefed the Supreme Commander of the Amazonian Defense Forces. I spoke to different defense advisors, the Deputy Defense Chair, Capo Daniel. We had a discussion on the situation in Talim, and we were working in the background to resolve the situation. We were aware that forces have left Libialem and have entered into that area, and we engage in certain activities. I asked Deputy Capo to work on the situation. I think a few hours later, I was briefed again on the development because contact had been established with Commander Ayeke, who explained the circumstances of what is happening in Talim. And we were more concerned with the lives of the civilians. And I had authorized that any kind of activities that negatively affect the lives of the civilians must be halted. Our civilian population is critical as our first line of intelligence for the sustainability of our liberation struggle. And I think a few hours later, I received confirmation of discussions with General Ayeke and the efforts being taken to make sure that the tension within Talim, was lowered. And we were also building contingency plans within other forces to take some action. I wouldn't go into the details. The next day, I was also briefed on the demise of General Ayeke, and this is extremely very sad. After I learned of his death, I then received further information on the circumstances of the death. I wouldn't discuss the details here. I'm giving you this information for you to understand that we follow situations in our homeland detailedly. There are a lot of things that we know. There are a lot of things that we monitor because they are critical for the survival of the resistance. Commander Ayeke was one of the commanders we were seeking his defection from the regime after a couple of others had defected. And I had given those who had defected the responsibility to make sure that Amazonians still aiding the terror regime should move out. And contact had been established with Commander Ayeke. By the time he left, the main contact that was working on it was not contactable. I will not go into details because of security reasons. And he ended up in the BLM. It was still wonderful because the basis of our liberation strategy, I know some of you easily forget, is the block by block. The survival of any block depends on the health of other blocks. That is why we have always, my leadership has always sought to support other blocks, whether they fight under the Amazonian Defense Forces or not, because their strength, their ability to defend those blocks is critical for the survival of the other blocks. And so Commander Ayeke had been defending his block in a valiant way. Like some commanders on the ground, they have been engaged in actions that are inconsistent with our code of conduct. But we must understand, as I have explained repeatedly, the circumstances under which these brave warriors fight. Unpaid, uncared for, they are both fighters, they are both caregivers, they are both doctors. And this is extremely difficult, unsustainable for a long period of time when they lack the basic ability to fund the resistance in a sustainable manner. So while we will constantly educate them on the necessity to respect the code of conduct and to adhere to good practices, we will also condemn practices that go beyond acceptable norms. But Commander Ayeke died in action as a warrior. We understand where he died, we understand the circumstances, and we expect our denizens within that particular community to continuously believe in the liberation struggle, and their allegiance must be to the flag, to the homeland, and to the anthem. Any collaboration with La République du Cameroon, whether for your safety or not, is unacceptable, is considered treacherous and prosecutable. And so this message should be received by all Amazonians across the territory. Amazonia is fighting for its survival. It is an existential struggle. And despite the hardship, despite certain conditions imposed on you, you must remain loyal to the liberation and the survival of our country. Secondly, and this goes to every commander in the homeland, you are not a superman. You are a mere mortal. You must understand when soldiers are in battle, their first instinct is their survival. That is their first instinct, is their own safety before the safety of the community and the safety of the nation. I have continuously advised of the necessity for all of you, especially those isolated blocks, isolated defense groups operating within isolated blocks. When you move out of your comfort zone, when you move out of your block, you extend the perilous nature of your security. Our commanders and our generals survive because of the network of the blocks. That each block is an intelligence outpost, is a security outpost. And if you move out of your block to operate far away, you expose yourself. You can only remain strong if the other blocks can guarantee your security in providing intelligence for you to understand the movement of the enemy. I am asking all the defense groups in the homeland to work closely with the Ambazonian Defense Forces. They are unmatched in their strength, in their intelligence gathering, and in their abilities. Just in the past few weeks, I think we have been able to put in more than 20 more AKs on the ground. And as I said before, my primary responsibility as a leader is to arm ground zero. If I had the means to arm every human being, soldier or no soldier, on the ground, I would do that. The survival of Ambazonia during this war of liberation, thereafter, hemmed in by two aggressive neighbors, can only be guaranteed when we posture ourselves in a deterrent manner through our creativity and knowledge, the strength of our economy, and most importantly, the strength and professionalism of our defense forces. My primary responsibility will remain the arming of our soldiers to stay alive and defend the homeland. And I am asking all the groups, 7 Qatar, British Southern Cameroon Restoration Forces, and all the others to align with the Ambazonian Defense Forces. It has the political leadership and the mobilization power to sustain. The others you don't have. It is critical. You can't fight forever. You will tire down if you don't network and bring Cameroon to its knees as quickly as possible. I have also instructed the War Council, I have instructed the General, the Supreme Commander, to make sure his primary responsibility is to make sure all other small defense groups align with the Ambazonian Defense Forces. We will provide you the support. Make no mistake, do not listen to propagandists who tell you you are being used to install political power. No leader will impose himself or herself over Ambazonia. You, the Ambazonian people, will make the determination using the institutions created during the period of transition to determine your governors. This is the stage of liberation. We must be focused with liberation and forget about the fantasy of governance. That is why we lose our brave men. A dead soldier doesn't fight anymore. If you want to stay alive, if you want to live to enjoy the fruit of your labor, you must make sure you connect. Forget the antagonism. Forget the intoxication and manipulation. Most of you as soldiers will know me. I'm concerned about your security and your safety. I'm concerned about your families. It's not about me. It's about you. Take this seriously. You know what I'm talking about. Those of you listening from ground zero, you will receive the weapons if you align. We don't just throw materials here and there. Some of you are asking for materials. No, You must submit yourself first to the scrutiny of the code of conduct. You must make yourself a block that can back up other blocks. We don't want to build monsters on the ground that will turn their guns to assassinate other soldiers. And so we want to build a network of forces that can be able to provide the kind of defense intelligence and operational strategy that makes you first stay alive, survive the blocks, protect our people. You must also understand that your relationship with the community is critical for your survival. The reason why defense forces emerged was primarily to provide security for our communities. The vanguard of those communities, not the tormentors of those communities. Communities have received enough torments from Cameroon, deprivation from Cameroon, exclusion from Cameroon. Your responsibility is to provide security, to ensure that you can provide humanitarian aid through facilitation and provision. Any group, defense force, individual, commander, mission commander, operational commander, intelligence officers who persecute, who molest, who attack the integrity of our people, you will face prosecution irrespective of your contribution towards the defense of our homeland. You must understand the importance of the sanctity of life and the protection of human dignity and to work according to the spirit of your code of conduct. You've done well. You've sacrificed a lot. And for that, the people of Ambazonia will forever remain grateful. You must know that your contribution today will determine the kind of Ambazonia that the next generation is going to inherit. If you institute a reign of terror, that is the kind of Ambazonia that you're building. If you institute a system of the protection of the lives of people, civilians, respect for human rights, to ensure the safety of our people, providing access to humanitarian support, that's the kind of society the next generation will inherit. And they will forever remain grateful for what you've offered them. We're fighting against Cameroon because of the regime of terror, assassination. We want to thank General Ayeke. You've gone beyond to meet other brave hearts who fought to defend our homeland. You've left your mark. It is for all those who were left behind to continue on the footsteps that you walk. My fellow Ambazonians, on the 2nd of October, I did make an announcement. I made an assessment of what will be required for us to end Cameroon's impunity. It is critical for us to increase the stocks, to consolidate the gains. Any one of you who has watched Cameroon, its activities in Manu, in Fako, in Momo, in Mezam, in Bui, they can hold grounds. Even those who killed General Ayeke. It was a surgical operation, and they all retreated. Just imagine that we had provided enough materials to our people. Just imagine for one moment that we translated all of these bickering and noise and propaganda into hardware. The forces who killed General Ayeke didn't go with armored cars. They were inserted. They walked long distances within our territory, surely passing through areas with minimum defense. They could probably not be engaged because the forces in those blocks could not defend themselves. When they attacked Momo, they retreated. They could not hold grounds. When they attacked Bui, they retreated. They could not hold grounds. We control the land. We control the land, my people. I have said this for 2 years now. You saw it on October 1. We control the land. The gap between that control and the actualization of independence is narrow, is very, very small. What will be needed to consolidate, to bridge that gap, will be the injection of more hardware to eliminate pockets of Cameroon's presence within particular territory. We have developed a blueprint on what will happen next. That is why I announced the Defense Stabilization Fund of 500,000 US dollars to make sure we achieve this great feat. We will not only crumble Cameroon, we will turn it into a place that will be unstable. The stability of Ambazonia will depend on the instability in Cameroon for a very long period of time. We are not only bent on eliminating their threat in our homeland, making sure they are incapable in the next 20 to 25 years to pose any threat to the integrity of our country and the lives of our people. The plan is there. The vision for the homeland is laid out. We don't have to rethink our commitment. We have to rededicate. The defense stabilization plan is it. That is it. That will make 2021 October 1st a reality of a freed homeland. As I said, I have assigned my press secretary, Comrade Asu Lucas, to head the mobilization for the Defense Stabilization Fund. I'm asking all of you, 500 of you will commit $1,000 each. Leave the rest in our hands. Leave the rest in our hands. Good night and God bless you all.